Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
You know, shoot, they're all freshmen, it seems like. We looked the other day how many guys hadn't played a snap here, and it's a bunch of them. So it's a young group. But they're doing well. I like them a lot. We're going to have 3, 4, 5 guys ready to go play well that first game, I believe.
I feel like we hit it with all those guys. They all like to work. They're all coachable. They handle adversity and failure well. Again, that's through 3 days, but it's also through a month or so.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a Friday night, turning into a very nice Friday evening here in the capital city after the storms blew through the state. Good to have you with us as we head into another weekend closer to the start of football season, high school football, college football, the NFL. Now we've got it all covered for you here tonight on Sports Talk, coverage of the Gamecocks and the Tigers. Gamecocks worked out this morning, and the Tigers are practicing this afternoon. And high school football, we've got some scrimmages taking place around the state. Jamborees coming up this weekend and ensuing days as well. David Shelton will join us in our second hour, and as we did last Friday, we'll open up the phone lines for David, and you can call in with your specific high school questions about teams and players and all that kind of stuff. And David will be happy to take it on. In fact, he'll be at a scrimmage as he talks to us tonight. Monty Dutton will be along. The full Monty on NASCAR. We're at Watkins Glen this weekend. And what else we got for? Recruiting-wise, the Gamecocks got a commitment last night from offensive lineman Lloyd Cushenberry out of Louisiana. We'll tell you more about him and update some other recruiting notes for you as well in a little bit. Braves make a trade today. Don't know why, but they did. Tell you about that, too. 800-956-7266. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at sportstalk. Can
you get that on the back of a jersey?
Cushenberry. He's got a lot of cushion. He's 320 pounds of man coming out of Louisiana.
How long have you had that Yankees shirt, by the way? Since what was that Paul O'Neill's rookie season?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, does it bother you?
Just wondering how long you've had it. I've seen that Yankees shirt.
I would prefer that you refer to it as first place Yankees.
Okay.
First place Yankees shirt. And I've had this shirt since
at least a decade.
Visit to the original stadium, the original Yankee Stadium.
Okay.
This would have been about 2000. What is this? We're in 2015?
Mm-hmm.
Probably about 2007. It wears very well. It's a very comfortable shirt. I am missing a button.
I didn't notice that. No.
Yeah.
No, and you're wearing the Palmetto Series hat, the free hat you got this week.
Brand new.
That's nice.
I actually took that from somebody, had to beg them for it because they had them in garnet and they had them in orange. They had them in gray.
You wanted to play.
And I said, can't wear garnet. I can't wear orange. And so he was nice enough to give it to me. And yes, I sport it proudly. And the concept of the Palmetto Challenge is a very good one, and hopefully it will juice up the non-football, basketball, and baseball competitions between the Gamecocks and the Tigers, because the athletic departments overall have something to play for, and that's the trophy at the end of the school year. Lines are open. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. Sports Talk from our Learfield studios in downtown Columbia, 800-956-7266, the phone number. At sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at sportstalksc. The website is sportstalksc.com and on Facebook, Sports Talk Radio Network. Lines are open. Whatever's on your mind, Open Mind Friday for a little while before we start getting into things, coverage of USC and Clemson. The Gamecocks worked out this morning. No major news coming from the practice. We'll hear from G.A. Mangus, quarterback's coach, also receivers coach Steve Spurrier Jr. from Clemson. Tiger is still on the practice field, but we've got some stuff from last night's practice. Brent Venables, defensive coordinator, Mike Williams, wide receiver. Got that coming your way tonight as well. David Shelton and Monty Dutton and Mike Morgan all coming along here on Sports Talk Plus recruiting for you. So we have a full menu, full agenda of great stuff for you tonight here on the program. All right, want to mention a couple of notes, and then we'll get into a couple of things that I want to talk about. First of all, former Clemson defensive back Robert Smith, who was waived by the Colts yesterday, was picked up today by the Seattle Seahawks. So it's a good place to go if you're a defensive back, the Seattle Seahawks. The Braves made a trade today. The Braves acquired a former Brave, Michael Bourne, and former Yankee, Nick Swisher, from Cleveland in exchange for third baseman Chris Johnson. The Indians are sending money to the Braves as part of the trade. Reportedly, $10 million is the figure going to Atlanta. Swisher's now 34 years old, and he's having a terrible year. 198 batting average, 2 homers, 8 RBI. He'll fit Braves with those kind of numbers. This is a guy that signed a 4-year, $56 million deal prior to 2013.
I think he's out with a knee injury.
He's had a knee injury. That is correct. He's owed $15 million for next season. And if he gets 550 plate appearances, a $14 million option will vest.
And they'll make sure that doesn't happen.
I think that's why they got the $10 million. I think that's to even up the trade.
Yeah. And that was a waiver trade, so apparently he cleared waivers.
Mm-hmm.
And Bourne is 32. He's hitting 246, has 13 steals this season. So we'll talk more about this when Mike Morgan joins us for our Braves report a little bit later on. Let's see. Former Greenwood star linebacker, Shrine Bowler, one-time USC commitment, Devon Durant, has surfaced at Marshall. Transfers there from Arizona State after having played at Butler Junior College for a couple of years. He'll have to sit out this season at Marshall, but they're pretty happy to have him in the program, feel like that he can be a big-time player for them. He certainly has the size and apparently the skills to be that kind of player. North Carolina announced this afternoon that cornerback Malik Simmons will be suspended for the first 2 games following misdemeanor charges against him. So he will not be in uniform against the Gamecocks.
Might have somebody better back there.
I don't know. Gamecock quarterbacks might need to pick on that position, depending on who they put in there. Alabama football. Nick Saban announced that running back Bo Scarborough has been suspended for the first 4 games for what Saban described as an NCAA issue related to amateurism. So it could be some kind of money. Who knows?
Could have taken
That's all they would say.
money for his picture or whatever.
I don't know. He's a redshirt freshman coming off an ACL in spring practice. He reportedly is ahead of schedule in his rehab, but was not likely to be medically cleared for the start of the season. So now he'll have some extra time to get that knee ready. Tony Stewart, of course, they're racing up at Watkins Glen, and it was up in New York State a year ago when the tragedy occurred involving Tony Stewart. From a legal standpoint, he's free and clear. However, a wrongful death lawsuit was filed today in district court in New York, and Stewart was named as the defendant in the case filed on behalf of the person who was killed, Kevin Ward Jr., on behalf of his parents, Kevin and Pamela. The lawsuit claims that Stewart wrongfully caused the death by acting with wanton, reckless, and malicious intent and negligence. Okay.
Well, here's the question. Was this time because They knew that NASCAR was going to be in Watson.
Well, they may have had to wait till he was back in the state. It reminds me of the Philip Fulmer deal.
Yeah, really.
Remember, because they served him papers when he came to Birmingham, and they had to wait for him to come into Alabama to serve him the papers. Maybe they had to wait for him to come back into New York State.
The urban legend is that they waited for him to open the door of the car as he pulled to the hotel.
I was there. It was hilarious.
Lap.
It was hilarious. They did. And the media went you saw 100 reporters trying to squeeze out of a door at the same time to get out there to catch that. All right, 800-956-7266. You know, the thing from yesterday with Rashawn Smith decommitting from Clemson and this thing about Dabo Swinney and his apparent position about if you commit to Clemson, you cannot take any official visits anywhere else. If you do, then you cannot be a Clemson commitment. That's all well and good. That's a fine policy to have if that's what a head coach wants to have. I was thinking about this, though. You know, it is really time for the NCAA to sit down and take a close look at their entire recruiting process because it is really out of control. And I mean, look, this is an organization that can ban a kid, can keep a kid, or used to ban a kid, keep a kid from taking a hot dog from a fan if he's walking through the parking lot going to the stadium.
Potato chips.
Yeah, so they can create any rule they want to. And so what I'm getting at is the whole commitment concept is just bogus, okay? It doesn't mean anything. So either come up with a reasonable early signing period in the summer to end it, okay? Mm-hmm. Rashawn Smith, you want to go to Clemson? Sign the paper.
Yes.
And it's done.
But
binding legal document,
and
it's done. Coaches, he signs, you're hands off. You can't recruit him. You can't call. It's done. But if you're not committed, if you're not sure, then don't sign. If you're concerned about who your coach is going to be when you get there, don't sign. If you're concerned about who else they might recruit, don't sign. But, you know, we can end a lot of this real nonsense and embarrassing situations in college sports with a reasonable early signing period that has some meaning to it, not a signing period in December. That doesn't fix it because recruiting has now shifted. Now they can also take the step by looking at recruiting calendar and putting in some defining time limits on when you can be recruited. Because I think if you polled college coaches, and I know you've got some college coaches who are just gung-ho recruiting because really it's the only thing they can do to keep a job. And they want to recruit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I bet you if you took a poll of most college football and basketball coaches, they would tell you this is crazy. I didn't get into this business to recruit 12 months out of the year and 24 hours a day, especially with social media.
That's what I'm saying. With the iPhones and stuff, it's got to be crazy. But isn't it the coaches
they can put in? But see, they can put in some rules, especially dealing with. And I know that now we've got the so-called official offer, which doesn't take effect until August of your senior year. You know, everybody gets excited when the official offer, but we all know that's a bunch of hooey. These coaches are offering people in their 8th grade, 7th grade verbal offers. Those receiving those offers believe it's real.
Sure.
You know, this young girl, the 8th grader at Wilson High School, whose mother is her coach, who's tweeting out these offers from Dawn Staley and from Clemson, they believe they have real offers.
And the thing is that these kids don't understand the difference between an offer and a committable offer. Yeah. And that's where I think more needs to be done to protect the kids from the adults who are trying to use them essentially because their livelihoods, their big salaries depend on these kids. But a lot of these kids don't understand. They get these letters. They hear a coach say, "Oh, I got an offer." Well, then say, "Can I commit today?" And then they'll say, "Well, no. Then you know the difference." But most of these kids don't know the difference.
Well, we'll continue with this in a moment. I want to discuss it further, what needs to be done to clean this mess up. So anyway, I think that the NCAA, because they've got the power to do whatever they want, or maybe the Power 5 conferences can get together and do it. They've got the power to create the rules because they create the rules out of whole cloth anyway. You need a rule for this, they'll make it. You need a rule for that, they'll make it. They can make the rules any way they want to. So they need to look, first of all, besides the early signing period that really needs to be early to end all this committing, decommitting stuff and put some teeth into it. Then draw up a recruiting calendar that says, you don't need 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th graders making recruiting visits to schools. I mean, seriously, you really don't. Your recruiting process, your true recruiting process shouldn't start until, I would say, and I'll be lenient here, going in the summer before your junior year. That should be the first time a kid should have the exposure of the recruiting process. What's pushed everything forward, of course, is the never-ending reporting on recruits at an earlier and earlier age. And why does that happen? I'll tell you why it happens. The recruiting websites are animals, and they have to be fed. And with kids committing earlier and earlier per class, they're running people to cover. That's why sometimes they'll encourage a kid to hold off. Wait till our all-star game. Don't commit early. They've even threatened them in the past to drop the ratings if they commit early. So what's happening is a particular class of players is committing early, and so they've got to start going up, or I guess down. The 2016 class is done even before the season starts. So now we're doing the 2017s and the 2018s, and even some in the 2019s. And it's not, the kids don't know what they're getting into. They really don't. They're wide-eyed and sometimes overwhelmed by it. At first, they think it's fun. But what happens is by the time these guys get to their junior years, they're so tired of the recruiting process. They're tired of talking to the media. They're tired of talking to coaches who are recruiting them. And it's just a big turnoff to them. So the real recruiting process should not start at least until the summer of your junior year. And that's when visits can start to take place. And now, how do you police that? That's where the NCAA would have to come up with some strong measures to try and do so. Can you tell a kid, hey, you can't come on a college campus until the summer of your junior year? No, he can visit on his own with his family, but I would say you can't have any contact with staff members. If you do, that's a violation for the school. You have to come on your own, do your own looking around and meeting with people in the academic side, but you cannot meet with coaches. You cannot have an orchestrated, organized type of visit.
You mentioned something, though, with their families, because haven't you, in your experience, when a guy has a family member, a parent who takes control of the recruiting, it seems to go more smoothly than those that just let them just turn them loose.
Most of the time, unless you have a rogue parent who's got something else in mind, who wants to live off the future fandom of his son. We'll be right back. back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Catch you up on a couple of things. Then check in on the USC practice from this morning. At Watkins Glen, Jeff Gordon, fastest driver in second round of practice, 127.333. Boy, could he get a win at Watkins Glen?
Swan song win.
Possibly.
Jeff.
Kyle Larson was second fastest, followed by Greg Biffle, Kyle Busch, and Joey Logano. Tony Stewart's, with everything swirling around him, was 10th fastest in the second round of practice. The World Golf Championship Invitational at Firestone, and Jim Furyk continues to lead. Second straight 66 puts him at 8 under. Shane Lowry, Bubba Watson, and Dustin Johnson, they're tied at 4 under. DJ had a 67 today on top of his 69 yesterday. Watson had a 66. And some other scores of note, Jordan Spieth, a 68. He's at 2 under, along with Jason Day. Sergio Garcia, still on the course. He's at 2 under playing the last hole. Zach Johnson, second straight even par round for him. Russell Henley, also a 70. He's even par. Matt Kuchar, he's in an even par. Adam Scott is +1. Kevin Kisner +2. Bill Haas is +3. And Ben Martin, a 71 today. He is 6 over the cut. Cut tournament. You know what? I don't think there is a cut in this tournament because the field is small, being an invitational. This is the final tournament before the final major. Last shot at glory next week. PGA Championship.
Also known as the golf tournament where I stopped paying attention to golf. I
You mean at that tournament?
at the end of it.
Yeah.
I don't really get into the FedEx playoffs. And it's same, to be quite honest with you, it's hard for me to really be passionate about NASCAR as much after Labor Day.
After football.
After Darlington, it's going to be very difficult to really, there's so much going on. You have the college football, and then you have NFL on Sundays. NASCAR gets lost in its chase, unfortunately.
Well, I did enjoy last year's chase. I mean, there was a lot of drama in last year's chase, and but I hear you. You're right. I mean, because
just watching the races.
Football is the big elephant in the room.
I'm not going to turn away from the Panthers Seahawks or whoever they're playing that weekend to go watch a race. Maybe the last few laps, but this time of the year on a Sunday, you'll turn the race on and watch the whole thing.
Sure. Monty Dutton coming up later, our full Monty on NASCAR. To a Gamecock practice from this morning. They went out for a couple of hours. Now tomorrow, it's going to be an open practice to the public and the media over the practice fields, practice grounds, starting at 8:30. And don't even think about taking your cell phone and periscoping. The Periscope police will be out in force at USC's
They have a
practice tomorrow.
Periscope jamming device, don't they?
I think they have BB guns. They're going to shoot your phone out of your hand if they see you doing that. Anyway, let's get to a couple of the offensive coaches they brought to the We'll begin with quarterbacks coach G.A. Mangus. Of course, the quarterback competition high on everybody's mind at this particular point in time, and he talks about what's happening out there among the four.
When we start whittling the reps, do you have an idea?
Well, we'll get through. We got scrimmage. We'll scrimmage a little bit more tomorrow, and go from there. Coach. We watch tape all day long. I mean, that's what we do. We don't go home after practice. We go in there and we watch tape and we talk a lot, and we're constantly changing and letting the guys compete. And we've moved them around. They've all gotten kind of equal reps with different groups, whether it's first O-line, second O-line, third, and even those are changing. I mean, we've got multiple lines going, multiple receivers, trying to find guys who can play, and some of these young guys. So it's going all around the room.
Is it a scrimmage tomorrow? Or
no, a little combination practice, and then we'll kind of like what we did here at the end of the day. We'll get out and just get kind of some live stuff, move the ball so we're getting in game-like situations.
Gee, how big a role can the tight ends play in filling that receiver void? Kind of
good. Coach had said earlier, about Jarrell hopes he's really going to have a big year. I mean, he physically right now, and he should. He said, he's been here a long time, and hopefully he made a really nice play today on a catch for a touchdown here, and in the scrimmage situation. So I think Jarrell is ready to play, and we hope this is going to be his time to step out. But he can be a heck of a weapon, that's for sure.
So it wasn't a stretch for Coach to say he thinks he can be kind of an all-conference caliber kind of tight end. Have y'all always seen that in him?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, he's got a lot of talent.
Coach Burr said you guys were charting everything. How deep are you going with this charting? And
yeah, we chart every single throw and have for a long time.
In terms of what? In terms of what? Accuracy? In terms of did he pick out the right receiver? Did he throw to the right side of the field?
Yeah, everything.
Did you recognize the defenses?
We're constantly putting them through. But that's so did Connor Shaw and Dylan Thompson and Stephen Garcia and all those guys too. It's no different now.
You notice
this guys haven't played much, so
you notice difference in Perry's mobility this fall as opposed to previously. He said he worked on that a lot.
Yeah, Perry had a great summer. Perry worked his tail off and had a really, really good summer, and very proud of him. I think the running stuff, moving around in the pocket for him, he's not going to be necessarily a guy that you're going to go call his number to run the ball 15 times a game, but he worked really hard. He's trimmed down. He's in the best condition he's ever been in, and he's already in our run game done some really good stuff here in the first few days. All right, G.A. Mangus, USC quarterbacks coach. Those quarterbacks to be trying to throw the ball to Pharaoh Cooper if they can, and a bunch of new receivers who have to step up and make plays for the Gamecocks, and that's on Steve Spurrier Jr. to get those guys ready to go.
Yeah, it's a good group. They're all doing a good job. Of course, DJ Neal and Jalen Christian are both doing good, doing well. Jared Washington's doing well. He's doing a good job. So those guys, shoot, they're all freshmen, it seems like. We looked the other day how many guys hadn't played a snap here, and it's a bunch of them. So it's a young group, but they're doing well. I like them a lot. Terry Guger's doing well. Carlton Hurd over there. Both those guys are doing a good job at that position. So we're going to have 3, 4, 5 guys ready to go play well that first game, I believe.
How many spots will Debo play for you this fall?
Potentially 2. Pharaoh, 2 or 3. All those guys can potentially play different spots. Pharaoh's a guy will move around a little bit. But right now, Debo's mostly at that X spot, but he knows Z pretty well and could end up in there some as well.
Okay. Well, I know coach tight ends, but can Jarrell help take some of that pressure and focus off Pharaoh?
Well, you hope all of them can. It's actually a pretty good group. Hayden Hurst is doing a good job in there. He's a good-looking tight end. Jacob August has done a lot of good things. That's a really good group right now. It really is. But yeah, tight ends. Hopefully those guys can play well. Running backs. Hopefully they can get involved in the pass game as well. But all those guys need to play well. Yeah, certainly we're not going to be a team that plays a lot of 4 receivers this year. And if we can play 2 and 3, that would be preferable.
What progress have you seen from Debo from spring now?
He's just still learning. Every day he's out here to learn something new. Learns a new coverage, a new defense. But I like the way he's playing. He's explosive. He moves fast. He's a little bit more confident in what he sees. But he's a talented young man, and certainly expect good things from him. Really do.
Do you move Pharaoh around to try to use the defense a little bit?
That, and then there's certain plays that we know we want to throw it to a particular position where you can't just create the formation where he is, so you have to move him to another one. And there's certain plays versus certain defenses that at different positions got a better chance to get more balls. Sometimes that's the outside receiver. So sometimes you'll see Pharaoh outside some.
With all these attention, all these freshman receivers,
how many is it?
Everybody's talking about Shamir. I mean, is Shamir? How is Shamir doing?
Shamir's doing good. I hope so. He's looking forward to it. Also, Shamir graduates tomorrow. I'd like to congratulate him on that. He came in with a bunch of guys that didn't particularly survive here. And it's not easy. It's not easy to make it 5 years and get your degree here. And he's going to graduate tomorrow, and I'm particularly proud of him for that. Really am. But yeah, he's ready to go. He looks good out there, and he'll certainly get his opportunities, and hopefully he can make the most of them.
What does the competition at the B spot look like right now?
Carlton Hurd and Terry Guger, both those guys are doing a good job. Sean Odom will walk-ons in there. Christian Owens is also kind of moving over there between there and F some to give us some bodies. But both those 2 guys are doing well. They'll battle it out. They'll probably both play a good bit, and we'll let them separate themselves as they probably play. But they've both done a good job. Really, really have. Carlton's come a long way.
All right, Steve Spurrier Jr. Yes, Shamir Jeffrey. It's time for him to contribute something to the USC football team going into year 5. He, coming out of high school, the guy had a world of talent. He just hasn't lived up to it. So, and we'll see if this will be his year. North Carolina was in full pads for the first time. TJ Logan, who's an outstanding running back for them, has been working out at wide receiver some in the Tar Heel camp. It is the Braves Report time, brought to you by Play It Again Sports off Bower Parkway in Columbia, where you pay less for more, and by Founders Federal Credit Union, helping South Carolinians attain their financial goals. Joining us now, just back from the Republican debate last night in Cleveland, Mike Morgan.
Thank you. How do you think I did?
Or was that Ted Cruz? I can never tell you two apart.
You finished well behind Kasich and Rubio.
Okay. I can live with that.
Yeah, you're a strong third place.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Kinda like
top 3 is all I was aiming for.
Kind of like the Braves. All right, so why did the Braves make this trade today?
Because John Hart is the Monty Hall of the modern era. The short analysis of this, according to the Braves front office, and I give them credit, they've been pretty frank about their deals. They're not trying to camouflage this. This is unloading one bad salary, getting another in return that'll be easier to dump a year from now. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
The Chris Johnson deal is still got a few more years on it. The Braves they basically admitted. Now, of course, it's easy to do that when you're not the one that signed him. You're kind of blaming it on the previous GM, putting it at his doorstep. But they basically said they made a mistake with the amount of money they gave Chris Johnson, who had one really good year in Atlanta, where he competed for a batting title, and he's come crashing down to earth. So you unload that. You get Michael Bourne and Nick Swisher, two guys who they'll be free agents at the end of next year. So if they do something in the next year and a half, it's gravy. If they don't, you're not on the hook for them after that anyway. You also get some cash in a deal. Braves fans might remember Michael Bourne actually had a career year in Atlanta a few years ago, made an all-star game, but then he has come crashing down to earth. So it's one slightly above mediocre player for a couple slightly above mediocre players in return, in a move that will free up more money at the end of 2016.
Any hope that Nick Swisher can get his knee back in shape and become a semi-productive player? I'm not saying – when he was in New York with that short right field porch, he made a living there.
Right.
Any hopes that he can get back to that kind of form or close to it?
I think there's hope, but I don't think they're banking on it. This is not the Nick Swisher that you knew and loved at Yankee Stadium.
Swisher-licious.
Yes.
Nice.
Very nice. He's not the same player. They know that. He's coming off another injury. He will eventually be in the lineup. In fact, it won't be too long where you'll see a starting lineup that has Swisher, Bourne, and of course Hector Olivero, who was the linchpin and the lat trade that the Braves made that upset a lot of fans around here, giving up Alex Wood and their top prospect in Jose Peraza. So you're not even going to recognize. I had a guy that's selling jerseys at the souvenir shop at Turner Field because everything that you had in stock, with the exception of the Freddie Freeman and Julio Teheran jersey, they're all just gone. You can just start going 85% off, and good luck unloading them. It's an entirely different roster.
Have to sell the jerseys with snaps on them so you can just move the names on the back of the jerseys. What about Vizcaíno last night? He seems to have pretty good stuff in the reliever's role. Is there any future for him, either as a long man or closer for the Braves?
Yeah, ironically enough, we talked about him last night. As I mentioned, I think the next month and a half or so is very telling for where the Braves are going to go for their closer. Again, this was not just a throw-in player. This is a guy they've traded for twice now, and when he's healthy, can throw upper 90s and has always had closer-like stuff. So now this is, you could almost say it's for him. He's been pretty good, not only in save situations this year, but overall he's got an ERA under 1. Granted, that's in limited duty, but I think that this guy, is a guy that they have their eye on. Craig Kimbrels don't grow on trees, and the Braves, I don't think, want to pay a whole lot of money for a closer in the near future. So this could be the guy. If he can prove that mentally he's strong enough to do this as well as physically, he's never really been in this role before, then that could be the guy down the road, not just this year, but next year as well.
Mike, as always, we appreciate it. Great job last night. We'll see you Monday.
Thank you much.
and I endorse your candidacy for the presidency of the United States. Great pitching matchup tonight in Atlanta. If you're interested, Jose Fernandez, who has, he's been lights out at home, pretty good everywhere else too. He's 4-0 this year, 2.13 ERA. Julio Teheran for the Braves, 7-6, 4.59. This afternoon, in the 8th inning, the Cubs are leading San Francisco 6-3. They have playoff fever at Wrigley Field going on. Recruiting coming up. For those of you wondering what we're talking about with Mike Morgan, if you've ever seen Mike and if you've ever seen Ted Cruz, there's a pretty amazing resemblance between the two. Yeah, they do kind of look alike. They have similar facial features, I would say. To recruiting we go now, and USC picks up offensive lineman Lloyd Cushenberry, 6'3", 310 of Geismar, Louisiana. He was going to wait to make a decision a little bit later on in the year and take some official visits, but he decided last night to go ahead and give Joe Robinson a call and make his commitment to South Carolina. He attended USC's camp back in June, and he liked everything that he saw when he was there. He likes the coaching staff, campus. He can play tackle, but he's expected to be a guard with the Gamecocks. He's athletic, willing to learn, help out any way he can, and he gets after it, he says. Other offers included Colorado State, Purdue, Louisiana Tech, Arkansas State, Tulane, Louisiana Lafayette, and Louisiana Monroe, and TCU was showing interest. That's 3 offensive linemen committed to the Gamecocks in the class. They're eyeing a 4th in Pete Leota of Asheville. He visited the Gamecocks earlier and has had them ahead of Virginia Tech and North Carolina since then. But before finalizing his plans, he wants to get back to Blacksburg and Chapel Hill. He does not plan to visit Columbia again or take any official visits before making his decision. He confirmed this afternoon USC is still the leader. He's in regular contact with the Gamecocks. In fact, he talked to them last night, and he says he talks to them basically every day, and they just tell him to keep thinking about the school And he said they're glad that he has them as the leader right now. He does not have a commitment date in mind at this point. 2017 wide receiver Juwan Burgess of Tampa has Clemson in his favorites list, along with Florida, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Florida State, and Miami. There is no order to that list. In basketball, 6'6" Durante Jenkins, who's now going to play at Hargrave Prep in Virginia. He's the former Lake Marion star who had been in Orlando. He's now going to Hargrave, and he's got his list down to USC, Clemson, Missouri, Tennessee, Indiana, Rutgers, VMI, Georgia, Georgia Tech, and LSU. He has not yet decided which ones will get official visits, but he said he is supposed to visit USC unofficially before he leaves Utahville for Hargrave. He's waiting to hear back from Frank Martin on a date. He did visit USC earlier in the summer. He talks to them regularly. He's also been to Clemson. The Tigers remain hot on his trail. He talked to them earlier this week as well. They continue to tell him he's like a KJ McDaniels type of player in their eyes. He could possibly sign in November, but he says he's not in a rush. And Clemson target point guard Kamar Baldwin of Winder, Georgia, committed to Butler last night. Top of the hour break. We'll be back.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Friday night. It's a football Friday here on Sports Talk. Coming up, some comments from Clemson defensive coordinator Brent Venables. Also, David Shelton will be here shortly. We'll talk high school football as we are into week 2 of practice for high school football. Well, not really. I guess the end of a long week 1, maybe turning the page towards week 2. Some teams started 8 days ago, so I guess we would be into week 2 of football practice for the high schools with scrimmages going on today. A lot of schools scrimmaging today. Jamboree's coming up as well. We'll check in with David to get his latest information from across the state. Now, if you have a question for David, you can ring him up when he joins us, 800-956-7266. You can tweet a question to us as well at Sports Talk SC or email us talkback@sportstalksc.com. If you have a particular question for David Shelton of the High School Sports Report, he also covers the high schools for the Charleston Post and Courier. He'll be with us in just a few minutes. Speaking of Twitter, K-Mac, what's been happening on the @SportsTalkSC timeline?
Here's a few tweets that we can pass along. Here's one from @WandoCock. Why do Clemson fans get so upset when people discuss Dabo's recruiting policy?
Mm-hmm. Why do they?
Well, the same reason why any fan of any team seems to get upset when they hear anybody talking about something that they perceive could be negative or not in line with their program. They just don't like it. If we say something, if you question Steve Spurrier's play calling in a close loss, people get upset about it. Yeah, they don't like anybody talking about their team or having an opinion about their team that doesn't mesh with theirs.
There's just a perception or maybe a misperception. And David Hood told me he would ask Dabo the question tonight if Dabo meets with the media, that he does not apply this policy across the board. Now, maybe that's a misperception. Maybe there are things, just like in the case of the Okindeko, as you pointed out, he ended up knowing, he obviously didn't end up knowing, he knew more than the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know that there had been a previous problem with Okindeko with the law when he booted him off the team. That came out later, but we're not in a position to know that. We're not in a position to know what happens in his office when it comes to recruiting stuff and how his policy is applied, if indeed there is a hard and fast policy about that. But the words of Rashawn Smith are as much evidence as we've from anybody about the belief that Dabo Swinney enforces a policy that if you commit to Clemson, then you're not allowed to take other official visits, period, because that's what he stated as the reason why he decommitted.
Mm-hmm.
Not dropping Clemson. He just wants to have the freedom to be able to take other visits to other schools.
And Swinney has said he tries, the first thing he does, this is paraphrasing a quote from him, I try to talk him out of committing. When the guy says he wants to commit, he tries to tell him not to do it and wants to make sure, and then explains his policy at that time. So it's his policy. Again, we just don't understand it. I don't think fully understands it right now, because some guys take visits and lose their scholarship.
Well, if there's one man in the state who can snoop out a football scrimmage or head-to-head practice with opposing teams, it's David Shelton of the High School Sports Report and Charleston Post and Courier, and he has found one to get to tonight. David, how are you?
Hey, Phil. Doing good. How are you doing?
We're great. Thanks for being with us again. Where are you tonight?
I'm in Moncks Corner watching Berkeley and Wando in a full game scrimmage. They do it just like a game, clock, penalties, keep score, all that good stuff. So these are a lot more interesting to watch than some of the scrimmages where they just go 10 plays and then they switch and another team, 3 or 4 teams. This is more like a game, so it's fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Are they keeping the coaches on the sideline or letting them on the field to instruct?
No, they're on the sideline, also in the box. So I mean, it's like watching a regular game, except far less people watching.
Yeah,
but yeah, they do it just like a game. They film it up. I see both film crews up top filming the game, and they have guys with headsets and all that. So just like you'd be watching a game on Friday night.
Now, we'll talk about realignment in a little bit, but I want to see what you've been hearing around the state on the field related to teams. Anything this week jump out at you? Anybody lose any major players or anything of note that you can share with us?
Haven't heard of any injuries. I know I saw on Twitter today where Dutch Fork and Spartanburg scrimmaged, and Tavian Feaster left the game with like a sore shoulder or something like that. I don't. From what I gather, it was not serious. So, this is really the first day of scrimmages, so some things will come out. I was thinking on the way here, scrimmages would drive me crazy if I were a coach. It's one thing to lose a player during the regular season, to injury. But, man, if you lose one of your key guys in your first scrimmage, it just totally deflates you for the whole season. I could see where – if I were a coach, I'd be afraid to put a guy like Feaster in the first scrimmage. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but, I'd just see what else I had. Maybe, it's kind of like what the NFL does with their preseason. Guys play very little early on just because you don't want to get anybody hurt.
Yeah, I would agree. But, the coaches will say, look, these guys have got to have contact. We've got to get them ready, and this is the only way to do it.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's Dabo Swinney at Clemson's got that same interesting dilemma with Deshaun Watson, except the college setting. They put red jerseys on the quarterbacks that can't hit them and stuff like that. But I'm watching this game right here, and I mean they're going at it. I mean both teams are intense. There's been some hits. There've been a few guys come off with limping, and one guy took a knock to the head and got up and kind of stumbled around. So. It's just one of those things where it's a necessary evil. You have to do it to get the guys ready to play.
And Wando has one of the state's young, up-and-coming players, do they not?
Yeah, they got a junior receiver, Trey Smith, and that was specifically the reason I came to watch the scrimmage. And he's every bit of 6'4", probably 200 pounds, runs great routes, long strides, great hands. And this guy's a player. I mean, he'll be one of the top 10 prospects in next year's senior class without a doubt. Probably, I don't know all the receivers. I know Shad Smith at Union County is really good, but this guy just has such good size. I mean, he's tall and lanky looking, but he's defined and he can run. And he caught a ball over the middle and broke a couple of tackles. So, it's been he's a weapon. They got to figure out ways to get him the football because he's a big-time player.
Now, Wando's a team you guys have ranked 11th in your preseason 4A poll. Have you seen anything from them to change your opinion of that?
Yeah, defensively, I would say they're in the bottom 10 in the state right now. They're not very good on defense. This is right at halftime, and it's Berkeley scored 4 touchdowns and Wando scored 3. It's 26-20. But defensively, Wando's got a ways to go. And now Berkeley's offense is kind of dynamic, and they spread it around and throw it around and got a good athlete at quarterback. So they're a little difficult for a first scrimmage. But from what I see, Wando's offense will be productive. They'll be able to run the ball. They'll be able to throw it. But defensively, they're not real fast. Not a lot of quickness on that defense. So, they will have some matchup problems.
800-956-7266, the number if you have a question for David Shelton about a particular high school team or particular player in high school football in South Carolina. Also, email talkback@sportstalksc.com, or on Twitter. You can send us your comment or question through Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Anything else that you've heard around the state to make you rethink some of the teams that you and Billy Baker put in your preseason top 10? Any particular team you feel like needs to be moved up or dropped down based on what you're hearing in the preseason?
I would say not yet. I think there will be some shakeups before the first game, before week one. I know a couple of scrimmages today. Goose Creek and North Augusta scrimmaged, and I was told North Augusta beat Goose Creek, whatever that means. Somerville beat OW today in their first scrimmage, and they do a game-like scrimmage as well. So that score was, I think, 21-7 or something like that. Maybe Somerville might end up being in the top 20. I think it's the first time in the history of the Sports Report they hadn't been ranked in the top 20 in the preseason. But they got a long ways to go. I mean, I'm not sure how good OW is. Berkeley, I think, is a top 15 team in 3A. I think offensively, what I've seen today, they're pretty impressive and they can do a lot of things. Defensively, they've been a little bit suspect as well. And, it's funny, I was sitting there watching this and I kept hearing defense is supposed to be ahead of offense early on. That ain't been the case. These two offenses have went up and down the field kind of easily, really. In fact, Berkeley just threw an interception in the end zone right before the half, and they were about to score again. So they're pretty good offensively. But, as far as polls, I haven't looked at enough of teams, and, injuries will affect that. But, I'm not a big poll guy. In fact, Billy Baker did most of that poll work. I'm more of a let's wait until December, and then I'll give you a top 5. But because so much happens in high school football, it's hard to predict. But the typical Spartanburgs, Dillons, Timberlands, the teams you get, Greer, South Point, Hartsville, the teams that we think are going to be really good are definitely going to be really good.
Well, David, as we get ready to start the season, any new rules in high school football in South Carolina, and since it's trickling down to the high schools already, especially at some of the small schools, I guess, what do they do in the case of what we would now call concussion protocol?
Well, there is a definite concussion protocol, and in fact, at the high school clinic last week, 2 weeks ago, there was a major emphasis on that, and now they're, but schools now, like you said, the smaller schools may not have the athletic trainers and stuff, so those coaches have to learn the proper protocol, how to suspect a concussion. And I can tell you, kids with head injuries or concussions, they're going to be slower to come back. They're not going to rush these kids back out on the field. But in terms of rules, the biggest rule was the elimination of the 8-quarter rule, which would allow kids to play JV on Thursday night and come up and play with the varsity on Friday. There is no more of that. And that is more of a safety thing, instances where kids would be playing running back on their JV on Thursday night and get 25 carries, and then on Friday night be on the kickoff team or whatever. It's just the more times you get hit, the more times you could get injured. So the 8-quarter rule is the one that's got the coaches kind of up in arms, because at the smaller schools, at the 1A and 2A schools, you have guys that really, they come up on Friday night from the JV. They might dress out 15 guys to have backups, to have depth. Well, they can't do that now. Now you either have to put them on the varsity or put them on the JV and leave them there. Well, I mean, you can bring them up. They can only play one time a week.
Yeah. Well, I hear their pain, but I believe let's err on the side of caution and protect the players.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, Jerome Singleton said that. He goes, guys, we understand the competitive nature and what we're doing, but we're here for the kids.
Yeah.
We have to protect these kids. And that, to me, it makes perfect sense. I mean, I know a lot of coaches say, David, you're crazy, you don't coach. Well, they're right. But if I had a kid playing, I wouldn't want him playing 2 nights in 1 week.
Absolutely. Hang on, David. We'll come back with you for a couple more minutes. Got a email question for you about Woodruff, so get ready for that. And we'll ask you about your thoughts on the reclassification plans as well. Back with David Shelton in a moment. Back with David Shelton. All right, David, your thoughts on Woodruff for this season?
Well, I think Woodruff's going to be typical Woodruff. I think what Coach Elder's done there, he replaced a pretty good coach in Brian Lynn. Brian went to Burns, and Trey likes to throw it around, spread it around. They've got the personnel. Woodruff's always going to be one of those teams that's always going to be in that 7 to 8 win category, maybe a little more, make a run in the playoff. Don't know much about their personnel at this point, but I know they did return a good many players. So I feel like, up in that area at that level of play, I think they're going to be one of the top, probably 4 or 5 teams in the upper state.
Besides the start of practice this week for everybody, or over the weekend, the announcement on Monday by the high school league of the reclassification plans beginning with 2016. Your thoughts on going to the 5 classification arrangement, and is this plan basically dividing the classes by 42 teams each, more or less? Is that the way to go?
Yeah, I think it is. I think, they divided 5A and 4A by 42 teams, but when you get down to and 3A is pretty equal to that. But down in the 1As and 2As is a little different numbers, which is good. I think in 1A, I think there's like 31 or 32 teams. So they kept the numbers fairly close. As for the whole idea, I'm all in favor of it, have been for years. 5 classifications, 5 state champions. Hopefully that Class A or some other class don't get a wild hair and say, we still want to do 2 champions, because they're allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some things in place to prevent that from happening. But the way it all broke out, I thought it was pretty good. There's always going to be that one school there, here or there, that maybe is in a tougher region in terms of travel. May have to travel a little more, but there are some schools in this state that are kind of out there by themselves, and they're going to have to travel either way. So, you have to do the best you can. I thought they did a really good job. I think you'll see a couple of schools appeal. Maybe James Island will appeal to stay out of 5A and go to 4A, but they would have to get a 4A team to agree to move up to 5A, and you're not going to see that.
Yeah.
But I tell you what you're going to see is this will last 2 years, and then the next realignment, there'll be some major shuffling, because some schools are getting Cane Bay right now is 4A. They're right on the bubble. They're going to be a 5A school in 2 years, or in the next realignment, because they're not getting smaller, they're getting bigger. With the building going on there and Volvo coming right down the street. I mean, Cane Bay is going to be a 5A school in 2 years. That will allow James Island maybe to drop down. But, as Jerome said, they listen to all appeals, but when you appeal, you have to supply the remedy. In other words, you have to supply every region that is affected, every school is affected, and that's a lot of work. You have to go get a lot of people to agree with you, and that's just not going to happen. So I think this will be the way it goes, and I think it's a good 2-year plan. See what happens after 2 years, and then realign again. But I definitely like it better than what we had.
David, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you again next week as we head towards the start of the high school football season here in South Carolina. We'll be right back. All right, Damani Dutton in just a moment. Let's give you a few notes being tweeted out as Clemson's practice is over and the coaches and players are talking. Running back Adam Choice injured his lower left leg during good-on-good drills. He eventually got up and walked around, but he did not return. The team physicians were taking care of him. All right, that's one note coming out of there. And looks like a walk-on place kicker is making a bit of a move with his production in camp. Alex Spence and Greg Hugel made their kicks. Christian Grooms from 43 yards, he was wide right. Hugel seems to have the strongest leg. At the end of practice, they kicked again. Spence good from 37. Grooms missed on both. Hugel made 2. Backed it up, and Hugel nailed 2 more field goals down the middle. Okay. This stuff is just sort of dripping in here, so bear with me.
Okay.
Deshaun Watson, good and bad practice from Friday's practice. Notre Dame's quarterback says that the Irish will beat Clemson anywhere, including the moon.
Wow.
Saw that little tweet coming out. Watson, they say not as sharp throwing on Friday, had 2 interceptions, 1 to Green and 1 to Tankersley. However, at the end of practice, he had a very good run where he made a sharp cut and changed. That's according to one of the observers there, tweeting that out. You know, remember, Clemson's practices have been open to the media and the public. Zach Brooks injury update for you. Tiger running back. And we will tell you that Clemson Insider says, source says that Brooks has missed practice the last few days because of a blister on the back of his foot. Not serious. Should be back soon. Okay. And Shaq Lawson had high praise for the freshman. Ryan Norton injury updates. And the Tiger center injury update on him. And Sweeney said Norton had a concussion yesterday. He's out until he gets cleared by the doctors. Well, I think he said that yesterday. Must have repeated it again today. Dabo did talk to the media after practice. We'll try and bring that to you before we leave you tonight. All right, Monty Dutton joining us now, the full Monty on NASCAR. The Cheez-It 355 coming up at Watkins Glen. So the road courses, you know, they're both in wine country. One's on the right side of the country. The other's on the left side of the country. Between Watkins Glen and Sonoma, which of the road courses do you like most?
I think that they're very different. Watkins Glen, since they don't run part of the course, there's a lot of people talking about run the boot. NASCAR has always cut off part of the course. Sonoma did too a few years ago, but Sonoma is much more uphill and down. I think that Watkins Glen is probably a little bit better show because it's a little bit easier for people who don't road race all the time. So I don't know. I just sort of six one half does the other. It's like, which wine do I like best? Well, I think Sonoma's is better, but but I mean, the Watkins Glen Xfinity race tomorrow is called the Bully Hill Vineyards 200 or something like that. That's neither here nor there, but I think that this is kind of, you know, this is a race that gives someone like AJ Allmendinger a chance to make the chase. And then I think that Kyle Busch, who has 4 road course victories, is a favorite because he won the one earlier. And then I think you also look, you know, this is the point, by the way, where the NASCAR's great road racers, Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart, it's getting to be a distant memory, just as it was until this year. That Dale Earnhardt Jr. was superb on races, but he hadn't won, say, at Talladega in 10 years. And so it gets to where you wonder if those reputations are valid.
Jeff Gordon, very good in the second round of practice today. And, he's still trying to get that first win in his final year. Could it come on this road course?
It could, but as I said, it's been quite a while. I mean, it used to be, to me, that was really exciting because 10 years ago, Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon on road courses was a real clash of the Titans. And, they just have it. I do think that one of the reasons that road course racing this has been going on for a while, but one of the reasons that road course racing has a wider range of winners nowadays is that they don't have to do the acrobatics of shifting with all the footwork, because they now have transmissions where they don't have to use the clutch to shift gears.
Mm-hmm.
And where once upon a time they used to have a camera to show how good Ricky Rudd was at shifting. Now that's it's not that necessary. I mean, you still have to go uphill and down and left and right, but the advantage of some people who are just a whiz at the footwork required is no longer a factor.
Well, shouldn't they? I mean, they talk about making it more so that the driver determines the race and the better drivers win. You put that factor back into road racing to put more of the driver's skills into it?
Well, there's a lot of areas in all forms of racing. You could make the same argument with Indy cars and F1 cars too, in that technology takes a little bit of that old-time driver skill out of it and other things. But yes, I do think you should.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer that they didn't. There are plenty of things that NASCAR doesn't allow, such as modern means of fueling the car where they still now dump a can in it. Are they the way they change? They could make it a lot easier to do pit stops, and pit stops would take 5 seconds or something like that.
I mean, you want to see them go? You want to see them to go to the Indy way, where they have the hydraulic lifts when they come into the pits?
I didn't say that. I said there are many ways that NASCAR limits technology, so why not do it in the shifting area?
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons for that is that once upon a time they allowed I don't know if they're still Jericho transmissions. That used to be the that made them, but I think originally they probably allowed them because they didn't want to they wanted to make it where the oval track drivers weren't inept out there. So originally that's probably why they left them, but there are many ways that NASCAR limits technology. So to answer your question after going round and round the issue here, yes, I do think they should make it harder.
All right, shifting gears to some degree, but intended. Tony Stewart gets hit with, I guess, a civil suit today, almost a year to the day since that tragedy up in New York State. Where's that going to lead, you think?
I think it's going to lead to a lot of publicity, and it's going to be a long, drawn-out process. Everybody has a chance. This is one of those issues where I think the most unseemly thing about it is media. There's going to be a huge amount of controversy based on from people who have almost no knowledge of what's going on. They're going to condemn Stewart if they don't like Stewart, and they're going to defend him if they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the most unseemly things about the social media is that you have, it's not just about auto racing or sports or anything else. Read Facebook every day, and I don't care what you think, there will be many things that just make you mad, because there are a lot of people out there who don't have any responsibility and don't have any knowledge. All they want to be is mean. We have a lot more people in our society who are just angry for a living these days. And so I think that's the most unseemly thing about it.
Right now, the race this weekend, and we talked about some of the do well. And I mean, Kyle Busch very easily could have won last week at Pocono. He's very good at this track, as you pointed out. Is there any reason not to think he won't be there at the end again on Sunday?
No, there's not any reason there at the end unless he has some. It's also probably true that just the strain that road racing puts on the equipment, sometimes you can have an engine go bad because you over rev the engine because you missed the shift or something like that. But that happens on ovals too. But there's always those type of bugaboos that happen. But no, I don't think there's any reason to expect that he won't be running up near the front.
Monty, as always, we thank you. Have a great racing weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you. Monty Dutton, the full Monty on NASCAR. Check out his blog, montydutton.com. Back in a moment. right, some comments from Dabo Swinney, K-Mac, reading it via Twitter, and then we'll have some of Brent Venables' comments after practice from yesterday. We're not going to have the Clemson audio into us in time for airtime, but we will have video up on the website in a little bit at sportstalksc.com.
Yeah, tweet from the Clemson official Twitter feed. Swinney, our energy through 4 practices has been outstanding. Fast tempo, full pads tomorrow, and then that's hashtag all in and a couple of 100s and tiger paws. The Clemson Insider has a few quick notes that we will pass along via Robert Thorne. So Dabo compared the 40 freshmen on the roster this year with the 42 from 2011. He said the makeup of this team is different because the veterans have had a ton of success. Dabo said this class of young players is ahead of the 2011 team. He said there are a lot of good people in this group. Dabo said watching the special teams competition has been fun. So they're doing some things to make that interesting for the guys. And Dabo says it's been a good first week of practice. He said the guys have really bought into what they've asked them to do. They have had 3 tough practices in a row, and the team has responded.
All right, again, we'll have Dabo and others from today's media session on the website shortly, sportstalksc.com. Last night, for the first time in camp, defensive coordinator Brent Venables talked with reporters, knows the questions are about the players that he lost from last year. He feels like the guys who are with him this year, the veterans and the newcomers, are going to be just fine, and he's optimistic that they'll be very good once again.
I'd say probably after a few weeks we'll have a better understanding, better. Guys will have a track record one way or the other, over time. So sometimes guys will have a good day and a bad day, who's the most consistent. But, you got almost 3 weeks to figure it out, so you don't want to rush to judgment one way or the other. So,
the coach, has anyone in the linebacker crew stepped up in the second level to impress you yet?
With the 2s?
Yeah. 2s and 3s.
I don't know if I'm ready to talk about anybody there yet. I mean, I think they're just kind of an ongoing battle with a group of guys there. There's some good and some not so good. We're going to have to obviously, you're going to have to have some depth there. But it's the same group of guys from the spring, that we're choosing from. Kendall Joseph, Corey Rogers, Chad Smith, Jalen Williams. Look at Dorian McDaniel as well there. Got Travis and Dorian and Corinne Wiggins all and TJ Burrell all working out on a strong side as well. So we'll get it figured out. Whoever it is, I'm not going to have a lot of experience, but I think that we got guys that all have a different skill set. So the group, we'll have what we need there.
How about Travis? They look pretty good running around out there, jump that route. Looks like
yeah. He's not really had any lingering effects, swelling or strength. He's within 5 to 10 pounds on all of his lifts from almost 2 years ago. So that's quite remarkable. He's worked really hard. They've done a great job rehabbing him and getting him ready. So he's really retained his, the mental aspect. He's been really good. So.
Talking about 2s and 3s, defensive line, any of those young guys standing out so far?
Oh, whoever coach talks about, he's bragging on guys, but, Jurgen's more functional because he's bigger, a little bit more confident. Register really, in fairness to him, this is really his still first week of full week of being at defensive end, but he's done some good things. And then Cleland and Austin, they're both long and can move their feet and bend. And they're intelligent and they're competitive kids. They take good hard coaching. They come from 2 really good programs and 2 sets of good mamas. They got their boys tough, so and humble and hardworking. So Shaq and Dodd, those guys, they had a great summer, really good leadership, and it's really shown. They're very comfortable in their roles right now.
Coach, the secondary is obviously very deep. Have Tankersley and Carter stood out to you? It seemed like they've had pretty good tight coverage.
Yeah, I mean, they're going against some really good receivers. They've had some really nice plays and some plays where they've gotten beat. So we got to be more consistent. And but again, they're both real competitive. Cordray is very anxious for this opportunity. Ryan's ready. Competitive kid. He's got good instincts and good top end speed, and he's trying to learn. And both of them are trying to learn the intricacies and just the feel of the game, anticipation. What's coming next based on what just happened, or what's a split or a release. That comes from just repetitions, just getting it over and over and over. And they got to have some failure along the way to grow and to learn. So, although you hate it at the moment, when they have some failure, it's a great teaching opportunity.
Okay, that's Brent Venables. We'll be right back. All right, just a reminder, coming up later tonight, we'll have the coverage of Clemson's meeting with the media after today's practice. Dabo Sweeney and others up on the website, sportstalksc.com is where you can get all of that. And then tomorrow, coverage of the two scrimmages, more or less. I guess it's going to be scrimmages for USC and Clemson. USC's open to the media and the public. Clemson's will be open to the media. I think it's their last day, right? He said the first 5 would be open at Clemson. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So that should be open for the media. And we'll have that for you on the website as well. So look for that. Sunday, Clemson's off, and USC has its picture day and media day, and we'll be there for that. And we'll have Steve Spurrier and I guess more from that for you on Sunday. And then Monday, back into the regular grind of practice once again. Also on Monday, we'll begin our Palmetto Pigskin Tour for 2015. We'll be over in Orangeburg at South Carolina State. So looking forward to that. The practice schedule for Monday at USC, the Gamecocks will be on the field at 9 a.m. There is no media on Monday. So you'll have the stuff from Sunday, nothing new from the Gamecocks on Monday. They practice at 9 o'clock on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Every day next week they practice at 9. At least at this point, Spurrier can change that up. Then a 7 o'clock scrimmage in the stadium on August the 15th. That'll be open to the public. And Clemson next week, they've got their first two-a-days on Monday. They'll practice 9:45 to 11:45, and again 7:15 p.m. to 8:15 p.m. Then an afternoon workout on Tuesday, another two-a-days on Wednesday, then a single workout on Thursday and Friday, and then a stadium scrimmage on Saturday. Have all that covered for you on Sports Talk next week. Also next week, on Wednesday, we debut a new program on Sports Talk that'll be here every other Wednesday, and it'll feature the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. And we'll have a representative here in the studio every other Wednesday night at 7:30. We'll be talking about everything on the outdoors, hunting, fishing, boating, you name it. Of course, we've got various hunting seasons coming up. Along with football season, you've got deer season right around the corner. I mean, there are people in our state who could give a hoot about football season, but boy, when deer hunting season gets here, they're ready to rock and roll. So we'll take your questions for our guests about hunting, fishing, and the great outdoors beginning Wednesday night at 7:30. K-Mac, some final thoughts.
Dodgers are winning. How are the Yankees doing?
Tied 1-1. Mark Teixeira.
Yankees aren't winning.
Home run number 30.
And the Dodgers have a better record than the Yankees, too.
He's on the Mark Teixeira, pro.
Yeah. Well, let's see if I can make it to the scrimmage tomorrow.
Yeah. I look forward to there. Do not Periscope.
Periscope it anyway. I dare somebody to be a rogue Periscope.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.